summer food service training, alternate meal service, safe schools training for school nutrition staff and volunteers. Pitt County School Food Service will offer alternate meal service during the 2020-2021 school year. Types of meal service. Designated schools will prepare meals for transported sites. Buses will deliver meals to designated locations. This is for enrolled Pitt County School students only. B. Designated schools will offer curbside to the community at designated times for meal pickup. This is eligible to children in the community from age 1 to 18 years. Specific guidelines are in place to identify the eligible children. Adults may pick up meals without a child present if the guidelines have been met. Meal preparation and service on Pitt County Schools campuses for enrolled students. Each school has indicated their form of meal service, whether it be by kiosk at designated locations in the school, the cafeteria line, or delivery to classrooms, or a combination of these. Summer feeding guidelines will be implemented during this time. Managers will review the meal pattern and sanitation guidelines with the staff distributing meals on the campus, on the bus, and one additional bus staff and bus driver involved in meal service and with curbside distribution. Some of the summer feeding guidelines will be waived, such as students will not have to eat the meal at the school site. Adults who meet guidelines for curbside meals for the community may pick up meals without the child present if they meet the established guidelines for curbside meal pickup. Offer versus serve for breakfast equals the option of declining a milk. And D, offer versus serve at lunch, the option of declining a milk or fruit. Approved school site volunteers may serve the meals. They must have training first. If they are not on the approved list, then managers must request a Safe Schools TA training for them before they assist. They must know what items are to be served at breakfast and lunch. They must know children receive the meals and the meals are grab and go. They must know to practice good sanitation during prep and meal service of food when transporting and meal service. All staff should communicate concerns with the school nutrition manager. Staff must practice the 3 W's: wear a mask, wash hands, work 6 feet apart or greater. Staff should space out when working and packing meals. Do not work closely beside each other. Staff should not sit at the same table when eating lunch. They should sit in separate tables, spaced apart. Students will not be wearing masks while eating. The goal is to provide nutritious meals that meet the school food service summer feeding meal pattern requirements and provide a meal to those students who rely on school meals and will not have that option if schools were to close. Program changes that started on November the 9th were 12 curbside location sites. That's A.G. Cox, Aden Elementary, Chicod, Eastern, E.B. Aycock, Farmville Middle, Grifton, Ridgewood, South Greenville, Walcoats, Welcome, and Wintergreen Intermediate. There are 8 bus meal distribution sites: Aden Grifton High School, D.H. Conley, Farmville Central, G.R. Whitfield, J.H. Rose, Lake Forest, Pat Tullis, and South Central High School. A new meal program option was added on December 5th through March the 27th. There will be 5 curbside Saturday sites: A.G. Cox, Eastern, Farmville Middle, Welcome, and Wintergreen Intermediate. December 21st and 28th, multiple meals were offered at A.G. Cox, Eastern, Farmville Middle, Welcome, and Wintergreen Intermediate. We will be looking at other holiday periods to determine if meals need to be offered. Plans are in place for 100% virtual meal service. There is a staffing plan in place as well if schools decide to offer 100% virtual learning to provide meal service at 20 locations. The curbside locations, the bus locations, the sites with Saturday curbside, and there are 3 sites that will offer lunches or breakfast from 5 to 6:30 at night as well. Updated curbside guidelines. Curbside started on November the 9th, and they're open sites. There are 12 curbside location sites: A.G. Cox, Aden Elementary, Chicod, Eastern, E.B. Aycock, Farmville Middle, Grifton, Ridgewood, South Greenville, Walcoats, Welcome, and Wintergreen Intermediate. It's open to age 1 to 18. The number of children must be accounted for when an adult picks up the meal the first time. The first visit, the adult will get a form that the school nutrition staff will write the number of children the adult brought with them that day on the form and give it to the adult. The adult will have to show that form for future meal curbside pickups to get up to the number of meals originally approved or less. One adult can bring multiple completed forms to obtain a larger number of meals. Up to 19 meals a day may be picked up by one adult if they have the required forms. Individuals over 18 years who participate in a public or nonprofit school program established for the disabled who are determined by the state to be mentally or physically disabled may receive meals offered by the summer feeding program. Children do not have to be enrolled in Pitt County schools for curbside. Children 1 to 18 years of age are eligible for curbside pickup. Children may come to the site on their own to pick up the meals. If the adult does not have the form, the adult must have the children with them to get the meal and a new form. Unique meal need curbside orders. Curbside pre-orders for unique meal need students are due by 3 p.m. on Thursdays unless otherwise advertised. If you have an order for your school, you will receive an email from the Pitt County School Food Service Department no later than Friday afternoon with the information below: the student's ID number, the student's name, the school they're enrolled, the allergies, who the contact information is, and what meals the parent selected for the child to have picked up. Meals are at no cost to the child. Breakfast for the bus, curbside, and unique meal needs will be served at the same time as lunch to those students who would like the breakfast. Breakfast and lunch are optional. Do not pack these in the same containers. Exceptions may be Saturday and holiday meal boxes, which may have multiple meals packed together. You must follow times set for curbside meal service, and volunteers from school may assist with delivery of meals but must get the meal service training. Meals served at the school. Meals will be rung in the quick lunch point of service at the kiosk, classroom delivery, and dining rooms unless approved for trained designated staff to use a roster. If a TA or designated school staff assist with meal service, they must complete the required safe school training for meal service and accountability if a school nutrition staff is not assisting. If a TA or designated school staff assists with meal service with the school nutrition staff, the school nutrition staff will ring in the students at the point of service, and the TA or designated school staff will distribute the meal components. Meals served from the school bus. Meals are pre-ordered. The deadlines are published on the Pitt County School website and other forms of communication by Pitt County Schools. Transport of meal service to designated locations from school bus are determined by the pre-order form for enrolled students. The bus will park in a safe location, such as a parking lot or designated location along the bus route. They will follow the established route set by the Transportation Department. Designated staff will be in charge of meals at all times and ensure guidelines are met. School nutrition designated staff to verify the students receive the meal from the pre-order roster and ring the students as they receive the meal into the quick lunch point of service. Managers should train volunteers on the proper hand washing and provide hair nets if in the prep area. Recommend they wear gloves to distribute meals and may wear a baseball cap. Managers train how to count meals served and the required information needed on school campuses if a roster is approved for using as a point of service, and the numbers are entered in the actual point of service before the end of the day. The classroom service and TA are approved school staff accounting and serving meals. School nutrition staff or volunteers should wash their hands for 20 seconds with warm soapy water, and managers implement the Pitt County School safety guidelines for wearing masks and social distancing. Avoid touching your face or other areas of your body. Wear gloves when you carry meals to the bus, to the classroom, or you're serving from the kiosk or at curbside. Place new gloves on when you distribute bags or hinge trays to the children and a la carte items on campus. It's recommended to have hand sanitizer on the bus as well as on kiosk carts at the school site or at the cafeteria line. Also at lunch, have water available to the students, and managers follow your guidelines when tracking any foods not available in regards to missing any required meal components. Shelf-stable breakfast items that meet the meal pattern will be delivered on the school bus when the lunch is served. Breakfast distributed will be accounted for the day of meal service, although it is planned to be consumed the next day. The breakfast is a meal they have for the next morning, or they may eat it when they desire. Lunch, when distributed, will be rung in the point of service. Curbside or bus breakfast and lunch are accounted for on the school food service tally sheet or bus pre-order form and rung to the point of service at the end of the day. Attach the tally form to the transaction detail report for that day or end of week for pre-order form. Managers will review the meal production records for the accurate information daily. Staff preparing should record accurately what they prepared, ring in the curbside tally form and the quick lunch at the end of the day, verify the school nutrition staff on the bus rung in the breakfast served and quick lunch at the end of the bus route. Lunch is keyed at the point of service on the bus or in the classroom or down the hallway or in the cafeteria. Enter meal counts in the daily meal count Google form. If no meals are served, enter 0. Ensure any rosters used for meal service, delivered to classroom by non-school nutrition staff, pre-order bus forms, curbside tally sheets, or step to the end of the day paperwork. Adjust meals planned and prepared based on meals pre-ordered or knowledge of what numbers were like from prior service to avoid waste. Utilize product on hand as additional choices to work inventory down. Ensure the planned menu is available from the first to last child, and train and retrain staff on social distancing, washing hands, and extra cleaning and disinfecting protocols. Follow the meal packing guidelines. Ensure school nutrition staff take temperature of foods at the school site before service regardless of meal type and record on the required forms. Meal service. Managers clearly indicate to staff that will be transporting meals on buses, curbside, and on campus all items each child should receive to equal a meal. This is if all items are not packed in a bag or hinge-top tray or other acceptable packaging. Example, for breakfast they receive a cinnamon roll, a half a cup fruit, juice, or milk. The cinnamon roll is packed in a bag, but the juice, fruit, and milk are in a cooler. Instruct the servers that each child receives the one cinnamon roll that is in the bag, the one juice, and the one fruit. Milk is optional per offer versus served guidelines. The server should ask the student, would you like a milk? And if they say yes, which kind? Do the same for lunch items if they are not all packed in a container. At lunch, fruit and milk are optional per offer versus served guidelines. Follow recommended meal packing guidelines, consider what is appropriate, and provide quality food and avoid being wasteful. Remember, at lunch, the fruit and milk are optional, so they should not be packed together. The server should ask the child, would you like a fruit? And if you're offering choices, which fruit? And would you like a milk? And if yes, what kind of milk, chocolate or plain? Meal pattern for breakfast. We must offer and have available 1 8-ounce fluid serving of milk, 1 half cup serving of fruit, and 1 half cup fruit juice, and 1 serving of grain or bread. There may be a 1 ounce serving of meat or meat alternate included with breakfast. Remember, milk is optional at breakfast, so the server should ask, would you like a milk? And if the child says yes, ask what kind, the plain or the chocolate. You may pack together the grain, the fruit, and the juice. Do not automatically put the milk in the bag because it is optional. Meal pattern for lunch. We must offer and have available 1 8-ounce fluid serving of milk, a half a cup of fruit. The milk and the fruit is optional, so students may take one, both, or neither. Servers should ask, would you like a milk? And if yes, what kind? And would you like a fruit? Packed together in the grab-and-go containers are the one serving, which is 1 ounce of grain or bread and a half a cup of vegetable, and 1 2-ounce serving of meat or meat alternate. You should not automatically pack the fruit and the milk in the bag without first asking if they would like it. This is part of offer versus serve. When transporting food items, bus, curbside, kiosk, classroom, or delivery, the milk, Cold food items and juice may be packed separate, but all are required food components and must be served to the participant. Know which items follow offer versus serve, which again, at breakfast, milk is optional, and at lunch, milk and the fruit is optional. School Nutrition Central Office will provide guidance and recommendations for packing food items and service and will update with any changes. Time restrictions for deliveries. Meals may not be delivered greater than 1 hour before the approved meal service period unless proper storage facilities exist for storing the food. Food items to be kept cold must be packed on ice in the coolers. Place ice in approved bags and place at the bottom and top of cooler. Consume or discard food within 4 hours from the time it leaves the kitchen. Leftovers will be recorded on the meal production record. The staff on the bus will return any leftover meals to the school site, and the school site will discard the leftovers. Meal count form and transporter meal form is returned to the school-based staff. The manager will document all foods used and discarded on the meal production record. Be clear what was returned and discarded. Don't forget to track condiments used on the meal production record. Pitt County Schools does not allow second meals to be served. Only one reimbursable meal per eligible participant at each meal period. If at the curbside pickup they say they have 4 children, they may get 4 breakfast and 4 lunch for that day. Reference the calendar meal form for the approved number of meals. Remember that parents or adults may pick up meals for children and not have a child present if they have come by the curbside pickup site to begin with the children present, and received a calendar meal form that will indicate the number of meals that they are eligible to pick up whenever they do not have a child present with them. If a child comes to the curbside meal pickup themselves, they're eligible for 1 breakfast and 1 lunch. A meal calendar reference form is not required. Those on the bus delivering meals communicate with the manager any concerns or issues. Reminders, they may take the breakfast and lunch or elect to only take the breakfast or only take the lunch. That is why we recommend you do not pack all items together. Guidelines to follow if staff is not feeling well. Stay home when you're sick. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water for at least 20 seconds, about as long as it takes to sing happy birthday twice. Make sure to wash your hands before and after preparing or eating meals and snacks, after blowing your nose, coughing, or sneezing, when in contact with body fluids, and after using the restroom or bathroom. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth, and cover coughs and sneezes with a tissue. Packing guidelines to consider. When possible, boxed meal components should be prepared a day in advance and allowed to cool to 41 degrees or below. Pre-chill all components of boxed or bagged meals, even if they do not require refrigeration. This helps keep cold foods packed with these chilled items colder longer. Example of items you can pre-chill are bags or boxes, napkins or utensils, condiments, chips, apple or fruit. Preheat or pre-chill the food carrier according to the manufacturer's recommendations. Placing hot food into a cold container. The hot food will lower in temperature due to the cold container. You may pour hot water in the carrier to raise the temp. Pour it out to ensure a more favorable temperature before placing the hot food in the carrier. Placing cold food in a room temp or hot container, the cold food will rise in temperature due to the hot container. So it's recommended you place ice in the container earlier so the temp of the container will be more favorable for maintaining the cold food temps. Never leave transport containers in the van or bus. If it is cold outside or hot outside, it will affect the temperature of the food that is placed inside the transport container. Forehead thermometer. All schools serving meals have a forehead thermometer. Staff should have temperatures checked before enter the building and before beginning work. Any options to this have been shared by the school nutrition director. Wellness checks should occur before the staff walks through the kitchen. Have a cart near the back door to check temps and ask the preliminary questions. The health assessment questions should be answered by all staff. Staff can answer the questions in the Google Doc after you ask them the questions, or as manager, you may enter the information. Only use the electronic form at the link provided. Don't use the Google form that was created earlier to write the information down unless the computer is down. Be discreet when you ask questions if others are nearby. Always check email several times per day for updates to guidelines. Bus drivers and staff on buses delivering meals should wash their hands and put on gloves before loading coolers on the bus. Load the coolers in a way to facilitate easy access to the food items to be distributed and avoid staff having to climb over the coolers. Load where coolers are secure to avoid being turned over or sliding around while driving the designated route. Once you finish that task, verify all items needed are on the bus: hand sanitizer, paper towels, gloves, trash bags, tally sheets, pens or pencils, and meal delivery form, the point of service computer, and all food items and containers for that meal service for that day. Wash your hands again before entering the bus and avoid touching surfaces once on the bus and anytime you exit the bus. Exit and enter the bus following safety practices to avoid injury. Bus drivers or designated staff should clean the buses daily, sanitize the high-touched areas, steering wheel, door handles, gear shifts, any high-touched areas, sweep and remove any trash. Follow the guidelines that the Transportation Department has put in place for the bus drivers to follow. All staff should follow the guidance in regards to not working if they feel sick. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. Wash your hands before and after eating, after you're blowing your nose, coughing or sneezing, or after using the restroom. Avoid touching eyes, nose, and mouth, and communicate with your supervisor when you feel sick and stay home. Report to the COVID rep at the school site for guidance. Communicate with the principal and the school nutrition supervisor, and provide documentation as requested whenever you're feeling sick. Ways that the staff can use to transfer meals to the customer in a safe manner. Place a cart on the bus. Use carts and or tables as a barrier between the server and the customer. Adults picking up meals from the bus or students may have to step out of their car to get the meals, but it will keep our staff from direct contact. School nutrition staff and helpers on the bus are not to get off the bus. Children and anyone picking up meals should not be allowed on the bus. Curbside meal service. Customers can pop their trunk from inside their car, and our school nutrition staff or volunteer place the meals in the trunk with gloved hands. The meals can be placed on a cart or table, and the customer can get them from the cart or the table. That helps to minimize exposure. Use a cart to push meals to the car. The adult can take the meal from the cart without getting out of the car, and the cart provides a barrier. Children should not be allowed to surround staff distributing meals. They should avoid contact with anyone picking up meals by social distancing. 6 feet should be practiced at all times. Nicely tell them to back away from you. This is during bus meal service or curbside meal service or even on-campus meal service. Staff riding or driving the transport bus to distribute meals at the designated locations. Wash hands before loading the bus with coolers for meal distribution. It is recommended to wear gloves to load the coolers and supplies on the bus. Have a box of gloves on the bus to allow gloves to be replaced as needed. Have a bottle of hand sanitizer. Carry trash bags to collect any trash, a roll of paper towels in case of any spills in the coolers. Whenever you remove your gloves, implement the following method. Roll the glove on one hand down from the one wrist. Place that glove into the palm of the other hand that still has the glove on. Then roll that hand's glove over the other glove, so inside out. Then handle the balled up gloves where the contaminated side is inside the rolled up gloves, and discard the gloves in the trash bag or lined trash can. Then wash your hands and put on gloves before getting on the bus to leave the school with the meals. Once on the bus, change gloves again and spread all the staff on the bus out 6 feet from each other. School nutrition staff will account for the meals using the point of service. Who will distribute the meals should verify before they leave the school site that the staff has pens, the pre-order roster, the bus route, the Wi-Fi router, and the quick lunch tablet. School nutrition staff should sign and date the pre-order roster for each day. The pre-order roster is stapled to the end of the day transaction paperwork for that day. As a reminder, breakfast will be checked off on the pre-order roster, but lunch will actually be keyed in on the point of service. When the staff returns to the cafeteria, they will then key in the breakfast meals for that day. We recommend you change your gloves often. After each stop that has a lot of meals going out, or if you have contact with the customer that is less than 6 feet. It's optional if hand sanitizer is available on the bus. When the staff is on the bus route, then they can use hand sanitizer if available on their gloves often instead of taking them off at each stop and replace them with new gloves. Use enough hand sanitizer to cover the whole hands and rub vigorously and let air dry. If you're rubbing enough, then it will air dry quickly. Wash your hands after taking off the gloves or use hand sanitizer if you're on the bus before placing on a new pair of gloves. All coolers returned from the bus should be cleaned and sanitized daily, inside and out, including handles. Remember to clean and sanitize regular kitchen surfaces such as tables, etc. However, also assign staff to clean door handles in and out of kitchen area, light switches, handles to coolers, freezer, etc. Wear a mask and practice social distancing during prep and meal service and meal distribution. And also, when you're eating your lunch, sit at separate tables. Be sure you're 6 feet apart since you will be without your mask. At the school, inspect and take temperature of meals prepared as normal procedure and store meals properly. Hot foods at 135 and 41 degrees for cold foods at the school site. Remember, you must cook the food to the proper temperature before placing in a holding cabinet, and it must be held at 135 degrees until you start packing. TPHC is for all foods on the bus. Label the containers of food with the start time and end time before you load on the bus. TPHC is for all foods once you're removed from holding, hot or cold food, and use it within 4 hours. Any food left on the bus must be discarded if not served when 4 hours is reached. If there is food that is not served, adjust the numbers the next day. Servers on the bus should remind children they are providing the food to them that they should go ahead and eat the lunch, but breakfast is for tomorrow and please store it properly. Here's an example. Time food is placed on the bus or transported to classrooms is tracked on the meal production record. Food temperature should be correct when the food leaves the school site. 135 degrees for hot foods, 41 degrees for cold foods. Coolers should be labeled with the time to discard. Example, placed on the bus at 10 o'clock, discard at 2 o'clock. Staff on the bus should practice safe food handling. Check foods when picked up and verify have all items need to meet the meal pattern. Serve meals within 4 hours from the actual time the food items were picked up to the ending time of meal service. The coolers or pans should be labeled with the time to discard. See the above example. Managers are complete meal production records and should complete with all information for foods prepared for transporting. Sample of guidelines for TPHC foods. Food is kept at safe temperatures following TPHC guidelines. If food is packed at 10 a.m., loaded on the bus at 10:30 a.m., and meal service begins at 11 a.m. at the first bus stop, then all food must be served to the children or discarded at 2 p.m. At 2 p.m., if there are any meals not served, these will be carried back to the school site to be discarded by the school nutrition staff and documented on the meal production record. Indicate at the top of the cover page the number of meals discarded that were transported. If meals were pre-ordered and children are not picking up the meals, call the number on the pre-order form to communicate with the person who ordered if meals will be needed or not. Document this information. Any food that might be left that is shelf-stable food that is carried out on a bus, then that guideline will be provided by the school nutrition central office staff if the food can be kept or not. TPHC. TPHC on the meal production record is the time you remove the food items from warming cabinet to pack in the bags. If you take directly from the oven to start packing the bags, then that is the time to record on the meal production record. When you remove food to start scooping in bowls, but not packing yet in bags, then you would remove only a small amount to work with to maintain temperature, scoop in the bowls, etc., and place back in the warming cabinet so it can be held at 135 degrees. All food must be cooked at the proper temperature before you pack the meal. Follow the recipes, portion size, and packing guidelines. Temperature danger zone. Requirement. Take the temperature of the meal at the school site before it is to be delivered and record the time and temperature on the meal production record. All meals delivered must be consumed or discarded within 4 hours from the time the 4 hours began. This time is recorded on the meal production record and the coolers or Cambro containers. Any exception to discarded meals which would consist of shelf-stable food items that were not served The guidance is provided from the School Nutrition Central Office staff. It is only for shelf-stable food items, and it was never served to the children. Once the food has been passed to the customer, it should not be taken back on the bus. It cannot be kept and should not be mixed with the other food. Cold food items should be kept at 41 degrees and consumed within 4 hours from the time indicated. Remind children to consume the hot foods as soon as possible or store properly. Temperature danger zone. Complete the meal production record when the bus returns to the school site by the designated staff on the bus in charge of meal service with any foods that were left and to be discarded at the school site. Designated bus personnel will return in the meal count form for breakfast and lunch meals to the manager. Lunch meals should be keyed in the point of service on the bus at the time of meal service. Breakfast meals served will be checked off on the pre-order form and keyed when the bus returns to the cafeteria by the designated person on the bus in the point of service. Questions, email Valerie Lindsay at vlindsay@pitt.k12.nc.us.